Hey there, it's Alison of Dreamweaver Designs, and today on Thinking Outside the Box, I'm going to show you how I created these really cute Halloweenish, funky swirl and dot polymer clay beads. They make for a really cool necklace and really cute drop earrings. So I'm going to go ahead and get set up with supplies needed, and let's get started. Supplies needed to create these beads are polymer clay, and I'm actually going to be using some polymer clay from Arteza. And apparently, I've done a video on their clay before, and apparently they have redone the formula on the polymer clay. So that is what we're going to be using, and we'll test that out and see if indeed they did. You're going to need something to roll the beads around, and you want to take into account how big your hole is going to be depending on what you're going to put it on. Like the necklace I showed you at the beginning, I made sure that it would be able to be strung onto the black cording. So you want to have that, a bead rack if you've got one. For part of it, you're really going to need something to prop the beads up on so they're not laying flat. A work tile, and this is just some foam. I don't even know what you call it, that I got out of packing. And it does go in the oven at 275. I haven't had any issues with it. So I like to put the beads down on that for the first part of this process. I used poly paste from Kato. You could also use liquid clay. I like this though because it has a thicker consistency and doesn't slide around. I finished the beads off with Varathane Finish Gloss from the Heart Supplies. And I think that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and get set up and let's get started. All right, so this is Arteza's box of 42, and you get all of these colors. We're going to be working with Halloween colors, but I wanted to show you what you get with it. Here's a little kit of findings and stuff that, earring findings, head pins, a clip. You can make keychains. Here are some tools. I really don't care for these plastic tools. They're great for kids, but if you want a set of tools, let me show you this. Arteza now has a set of 42 pottery, clay, and sculpting tools, and these are awesome. These are much better quality, and you get a ton of things. So let's get this open. Sorry for the crinkling. I'm gonna zoom back out a little. A lot of this is for, let me move this clay for a minute. A lot of this is for pottery, but you can incorporate so many of these tools into polymer clay. Here you have a little roller. There's all sorts of sculpting tools. This is great for making texture in your polymer clay. You can cut with this. It's not super sharp, but you can cut with it. Looks like, oh, yeah, that's definitely for pottery, but I suppose you could incorporate that into slicing layers for polymer clay. And then there's just a whole mess of tools here. You know, like I said, some of it you won't use, some of it you will. Here's a drill, a hand drill, and it has 2 different sized bits on it. I think there was another one here also. Yes, right here. So you get, it looks like they're the same sizes, but you get 2 of those. And let's see what else I would use. Definitely to scrape along the clay if you're doing a mukumagane. That would be good. Here's some rubber tipped tools, and this is good for shaping and finishing. Here's a piercer. You could use that to pierce a hole for your polymer clay to hang on a necklace or off of earrings. And I mean, this is a really good one too for scraping up layers off the clay. There's a lot of good tools here that you would definitely use for your clay. So I don't know, that might be an investment that you want to look at. I'm gonna put these away and I'll be right back. All right, so back to the clay. We are going to go through this and get colors that we think would look really good for Halloween. And I'm just gonna pull out, you get 42 colors here, and each block is 1 ounce. So I'm just gonna kind of put some colors off to the side that I think might look good for Halloween. I'm not sure which green I'm gonna use yet. And we need, I mean, there's a lot of pretty colors in here. If you don't feel like mixing your colors for clay, these are pretty awesome. I cannot talk today. I'm just gonna put these off, all of these greens, until I figure out which green I want to use. But yeah, these colors are pretty freaking amazing. I know with their previous polymer clay, I liked it. It was a little soft. However, it was very strong once baked and flexible, just like Primo. But I know there were some artists in the polymer clay community that didn't care for it or didn't even try it because someone said it was no good. So I'm trying this one. All right, let's see. We definitely want orange, and I think this green would probably be the brightest. Let me see if there's another orange, if I missed it. I don't know. That orange looks a little brighter for Halloween. I'll have to think about that. So I think I'm going to go with that brighter green. And as for purples, I want to go with the darker purple. I don't think we'll have fuchsia. Red, black, orange, green. We need red. Do we need red? No. We need orange, black, green, and purple. So we have black, orange. Maybe, I don't know, that's a hard decision. Green, purple, black, orange. How are those going to look together? I think that, I like that better than that orange. And that's kind of bright too. All right, so I think we're going to go with these colors. I'm going to go ahead and put these away off my workspace and I'll be back. All right, so I've decided to go with the fresh green, the lavender, the cadmium orange, and noir, which is black. So let's see, we'll start with green and go ahead and open up your package. And the nice thing about this is even though these blocks are small, the beads don't take a lot of clay to make. And depending on how many beads you make, if you make hundreds of them, you'll go through all of this. But for our purposes, we won't be. So the first thing I'm going to do, and I notice already that this clay is much firmer than the original clay that Arteza offered that they no longer carry. So yes, this definitely, I can tell already, is better It's got the consistency, I would say, of almost Primo. Not as stiff as Primo, but once you condition it and condition Primo, it gets softer. So I would say that this definitely is not, before you would do this and the clay would just all stick to your fingers. So this definitely is a much better clay now. All right, so I'm going to zoom you in just a little bit, and I'm going to show you how we're going to make the beads. This is a two-step process, and we'll take a little bit of this off. You definitely want to condition first, and you don't need your pasta machine to do this. You can just do it with your fingers, because what we're going to be doing is making snakes, rolling snakes. Yeah, you definitely could not do this with the old Arteza clay. Let me get my X-Acto knife out, which I never seem to be prepared. And I can't find it. All right, well, we'll just use this to cut. That'll work too. All right, so you roll your clay out into a snake, and you're gonna wanna have a ruler handy, because it's not a super precise thing, but I do kind of like to make them, you know, uniform sizes. We have all different size beads, but for each size, I like to keep them uniform. This part does not need to be uniform. So we're gonna start with the largest bead. And I like to roll out, that's probably, let's see, the thickness, we have millimeters. We're looking at 2 millimeter thickness for the snake. And like I said, this snake, you could put it through an extruder, but I like the uneven look in the beads. It gives it very much an organic look. So we're going to take this, let me pull my ruler up here. And I measure out 4 inches, because the largest bead will take 4 inches of a snake. And go ahead and cut that there. And at the end, I like at each end to roll it out to a tip or to a point. So each end has a point. Now what you're gonna do is take that, measure it again, make sure you're at 4 inches. If you're a little over, that's fine. What I use is, to make this a whole lot easier, is I take a piece of styrofoam that I got from packing, from something that I ordered and it came in it. And a toothpick is the perfect width for the cording that I used. What I do is I just take that toothpick and I put it right down in the styrofoam. Then we're gonna take our snake and we are going to wrap it around the toothpick. And to start it, I kind of like to just press the starting point into the toothpick. And then I am just going to spiral it, if it will stick. Come on. I am just going to spiral it around. All right, let's start over because it wants to be a bugger. But I'm glad that it's doing that on tape, because you will run into this and you just need a little patience is all. These are super easy to create, but you definitely need patience. All right, so let's start over. I'm going to go ahead and wrap that, and I just push it a little bit against the toothpick with my finger. This is when you wish the clay was sticky. And start spiraling. And I'm not rolling the tape or the clay on top of each other. I'm rolling it around to create a spiral. And I want that spiral to be about 4 rows. So right now we have 3. 1, 2, 3, and on that side we have 3. So bring it all the way till you have that last one. And this is going to be our biggest bead. So now you don't want to smoosh down on that. You don't want to make it flat. Go ahead and pull your toothpick out, and here's your bead, or the starting of your bead. And then what I do is I just take that end and kind of blend it in the best that I can. And that is our first bead. So let's go ahead, and the next one we're going to make is going to be 3 inches long. So we'll get our ruler out. Want to make this sure that this is about 2 millimeters. If you have it a little bit thinner in some spots, that's fine. That just gives more of an organic look to your bead. Like I said, we don't want these perfect. So I'm going to take this and measure it to 3 inches. And go ahead and bring this to a point. Bring back our styrofoam. Put our toothpick in there, or whatever you decide to use to create the hole in your bead, and start spiraling it around. And I do this just because this way my hole is uniform every time, and this makes the spiraling process a whole lot easier than not sticking it, because this way you have both hands free. If you had a third hand, you wouldn't need to do this. So I'm spiraling all the way around. And this is creating our medium-sized bead. Go ahead and pull my toothpick out. And, oop. You know, if I seem a little jumpy, sometimes it's not normal for me. As most of you know, I had COVID, and it left one of the lasting effects of it, which hopefully will go away, is it left me a little bit shaky, and every now and then when I'm working on stuff, my hand will jump. So if you're wondering, I am okay from the COVID, but it did leave some lingering side effects, which are not fun. I still have muscle pains in my legs, mostly at night, and joint pain in my legs. When I was sick, my legs hurt really, really bad, so I know it affected the muscles or the nervous system or something. So anyway, the next bead, so we have our large, we have our medium, And then we have our small. And we want to go, for the small, we're going to go 2 1/4 inches. So a quarter's right there. And take that to a point. Put our toothpick down and go ahead and wrap this one up just like we did with the others. And you're going to go ahead and make a bunch of these in all 3 colors. And then you are going to bake them. And then we'll move on to the second step. All right, so this one now is our small one. And you don't have to make 3 sizes. I'm just showing you what I did to create the earrings and necklace that I showed in the beginning. So we have a small, a medium, and a large. And then what you do is you take your tray, and really the only reason I'm putting this down is because I don't want the back side of these to be shiny. Not that it really matters, you don't really see them all that much. But I also like to, and you can use paper, like a cardstock that at that temperature is safe to go in the oven. But what I like to do before I put them down is I don't want them perfectly flat. So I'm just going to manipulate them just a little, just to, you know, give them a little character. So, you know, it's not perfectly flat. Normally we go for perfectly flat. We want everything to be uniform, but in this project, we don't have to. So none of these are perfectly flat. They're kind of wavy, which is fine. You're gonna make a bunch of those in all 4 colors. You're going to put them in the oven at 275 degrees for 30 minutes. 275 for 30 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and I'll be back to do the second step. All right, while we're waiting for those to bake, we are gonna go ahead and do the next step. And what that is we are going to need to make a bunch of little balls for the edges of the swirl beads that we made. So I'm gonna take some clay and roll it out into a snake. And this, the size of the balls that you make is up to you, depending on the size of the beads that you created. So you can have them big, small, you know, whatever is going to match up with your beads. And these don't all have to be uniform. You can make them different sizes, and that's what I did on my beads. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to take something, and from that snake, I'm just gonna cut off little pieces. And I would do that all the way down. Whoop, that one went flying. All the way down the snake. So I will stop there just so that we conserve time on this tutorial. Then you take those little pieces and you just roll them into balls. And you can do that in your finger, you can do that in your hand, and you are just making balls, little balls. And you will want to do that with all four colors. And you just keep going with all your colors. And I would say you probably want to make quite a bit of each color, because I made 36 beads total. So 9 out of each color in the 3 different sizes. And the large bead takes about 9 balls. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the rest off camera, and once I have them all, I'll be back. All right, I have made all, not all of the balls, but I made enough to show you the next step. And we've got our clays, and our spiral beads are out of the oven. They're fully cooled. And I wanted to show you, a lot of times when you bake clay, well, not a lot of times, but sometimes the color won't come out exactly like the package. So I wanted to show you that what the colors look like after bake. So here's baked and non-baked, and there isn't much of a difference. It is a little bit darker, and the orange, baked and non-baked, same color. The purple, or what they call violet, and it's just a tad darker, but basically the same color. And of course the black, it stayed exact. All right, and another thing that I did was I baked a small test piece, and it's a very thin piece, but I always like to test the resiliency of the clay. And Primo is a very flexible clay, as well as souffle, so those are my 2 favorites. So let's see how this holds up. This is flexible, but it did break. So for a very thin piece that, it is very rubbery, for a very thin piece that would need flexibility, I would say no to this clay. However, for these beads, it will be perfect. So put that aside. Now I'm going to show you how I add the dots to the beads. And this is where our poly paste, Kato poly paste, comes into play. And I'm just going to remove these off the tile. As you can see, the foam, or whatever this stuff is called, did perfect in the oven. So I have a total of 36 beads here. And we'll start with one of the bigger beads. I think I'll do 2 beads, and then you'll be able to do it from there. I don't want this video to be too long and too tedious. So go ahead and open up your poly paste. And I like to use a fine brush. This one's very fine. I only use it for my poly paste. And go ahead and grab one of our large beads. Now I will show you, see how they're kind of wonky? They're not perfectly straight, they're just a little wonky. That's what you want. But they are fully cured now. So I'm going to go ahead, and I like to start where our spiral ended. And I'm going to go ahead and put a dot of the poly paste right there. And then what I'm going to do with these beads is 3 of the large ones will have just green, just orange, just purple. And then for each one, I'm going to do that. Rotate the color that this is not around that for all 3 sizes. So we'll start with, I think we'll start with purple and black. Then you just go ahead and put your round bead right there on the edge. Then, oops, what I like to do, because we're going to have to go around, is find something else that isn't going to fit all the way through that hole, like the next size up. And I just go ahead and put it on that for now. And then that way I can rotate. But as you see, that little ball is not falling off because we put the poly paste on there. So let's do another one. And at this point, you can just go ahead and dot every area that you want to put a ball. And you just put enough on there. You're putting just enough. See if I can get that to focus. Where it'll hold the ball in place. All right. Then you go ahead and take your ball and put it right on the area where the poly paste is. And then you do that all the way around. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to a few and I'll be back. Bead. And then I just like to look around and make sure that, you know, each ball is where I want it. And this is where you get out your beading rack. And I'll have a link for everything in the description below this video. And I will have a link for this beading rack, but you can also make your own. And I'm sure there's probably a way to Google that to see, but you can make it with paper by just like accordion file folding it. But anyway, I wanted to show you how I transfer the bead onto my bead pin that will go on my rack. And what I do is just carefully push it from the back. So I'm pushing it off of the knitting needle and onto this bead pin. And then you just want to go through and check and make sure that you didn't, I know I nudged one of the balls. Go through, make sure they're all where you want them, and then you go ahead and put that on your beading rack. And what I'll do is I'll fill, you know, several on a bunch of these and, you know, have all of them ready to go. Once I've done that, I'll be back and then I'll tell you the next step. All right, I've made 3 of the large now, and I used the other colors other than black, and I've spaced them out on to a bead spacer, and I'm going to go ahead and put that on my rack. And I'm going to continue on with all the rest of the beads, putting the balls on the edges and then putting them into the rack. And I am going to bake these at 275 for 1 hour. And when that is completed, I will be back. Our beads are out of the oven and fully cured. And now I'm just going to put them out on this dish. Whoop. Our next step is going to be glossing them up. And when we do that, they are actually going to look like Lampwork beads. It'll be like faux lampwork. So these are all the beads. And once shiny, they will look like glass. So I'm going to show you how I make them shiny. And that is with the Varathane finish. And this is a water-based. This is actual Varathane, and it's gloss. And what I do is just take something that I can put the bead onto where it's not going to slide around, and take a soft brush. Let me get all this stuff out of the way. Take a very soft brush and just dip it in your Varathane just a little bit, and I start with the back side. And I'm just going to coat the bead with a thin coat, getting the edges and getting all the little balls. And then go ahead and coat the top. Do the same exact thing to the top. And hit the little balls. If you get a little pool of white, that's fine. You just don't want it real heavy on there. It will dry clear, but I like to kind of clear that up. And that is 1 coat of Varathane. I like to put 4 coats of Varathane on. It gives it a really good shine, and these end up looking ceramic or glass-like. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to all the beads, put 4 coats on, and I'll be back. As you can see, the beads are super shiny now. This is 4 coats of Varathane, and it gives them a glass-like look. What I'm going to do now is I am going to put them back on my bead rack, and I'm going to lock in the Varathane by putting it in the oven at 200 degrees for 10 minutes, and then I'll be back. And here are our finished beads. And this is what they look like strung. Make a really pretty necklace with these. These will be the focal of the necklace, and you can use as many or as little as you want. And you can also make the graduated earrings that I showed you at the beginning of the video. So I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope that it inspired you. I love playing with these beads. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up, leave a nice comment, and until next time, thanks for watching. Bye.